me your take on the racial component.
Yeah, and you know what? We should say this. That is what we do here. That's the part that I really love.
Our show always hits those kind of issues head on.
So we're going to put it all on the table like we're just friends talking about the issue. And I do see it a lot. There was a thing that I remember being in a conversation with young black guy and older black guys, okay? The younger black guys were with the Tebow thing. They were like, whoa, this is cool, the whole thing. But the older black guys just couldn't be a part of it. They didn't feel good with it. You know why? Because the whole time along, they saw these great college black quarterbacks who were denied the opportunity to do their thing in the pros. And what did they say to those guys? No. If you can't be a drop-back quarterback in the pocket, you can't play in the pros. You could be a DB. You can be, this. You can be that. You can play all kinds of positions. Kordell Stewart knows it pains him because he went through that. So there's a lot of people who look at it and say, but yet, here's the NFL giving a white guy who plays more like maybe a black quarterback did in college, right?
Yep,
but they're making all these exceptions for him. So there's a resentment that how come this thing wasn't made 10 years ago for other guys who had the same kind of skills? Why weren't they willing to tear up the roster and make it work so that you could get this talent in there? It was a flat-out no way, no how. And I think that's the part where you see a guy get so much attention playing a game a certain way that the NFL always said, we wouldn't play like that. And I think that's where it comes from when you talk about the racial component.
That's interesting and very well said.
You know what? I'm not naive to that, and I know that happens. But for me personally, I mean, when I look at it, he's a quarterback that has been given a whole lot, and he has done nothing to earn it. You look at the commercials that he's doing and all those other things. You look at defensive players like Kordell Stewart and Brian Urlacher and guys like that who went out there and they worked their butt off every day to get what was given to them in the NFL. You got a guy like Tim Tebow who, when you look at it on the whole, Skip, he won the job because of a popularity contest out there in Denver where the fans basically pressured the GM into giving him the job. Got Kyle Orton cut and sit somewhere. I mean, but on the outside looking in, Skip, that's what it looks like. So now you got this guy out there winning games in an unconventional way.
Right.
And this is all we talk about all day long. We haven't talked about how well San Francisco 49ers are playing or how well.
But not as much.
Can I have my moment?
You can't just say that's wrong.
This is what I'm saying as a defensive player and as a player in the NFL. I'm going back in my playing days.
All right.
And when Tim Tebow is talked about from the time they go to bed to the time they get up in the morning, and these guys are out there putting up numbers. You got Kordell Stewart out there balling, putting up numbers. You got guys like Brian Urlacher playing without a quarterback, putting up numbers. But all day long, we talk about a mediocre quarterback whose passer rating is like 46%, and he leads SportsCenter, and everybody's talking about
He's on the cover of the new NFL magazine.
And as a football player and as a defender, I'm looking at it, first and foremost, I don't like you because you play quarterback. You already get all the accolades. And then on top of that, they're talking about a mediocre quarterback. Every chance that I get, I'm going to punish you because of that fact. I don't care what color you are. You could be purple. If you're wearing a low number and you're playing quarterback, I'm coming after you. And that's the bottom line from any defensive player.
Don't you think this has made young Tebow's degree of difficulty much higher?
Well,
because everybody's out to get him
listen,
now?
You look at that. Well, yeah, it does. But you look at the way he's been playing and the way that they've given it, they've allowed certain things to happen for him. Guys resent that on a football level. Now, anything else, like I said, I'm not naive to the fact of the racial component. But when you talk to football players,
be real.
That's it.
But you've been in the barbershop and you've been around. And
there's no question.
Do you see the same difference between the younger black?
There's no question. There's no question about that. But for me personally, I don't care what color it is. I understand. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just saying.
But I understand. No,
the dialogue that goes on in the barbershop.
Because they're looking at like, why does this white guy get all of these?
Well, it's an earn your stripe league for sure.
Bottom line.
And so some jealousy at play too, perhaps.
Absolutely,
yes, because he has been given so much and hasn't done anything to earn it. You like a guy like Peyton Manning. You see what he's doing. Nobody can say anything about what Peyton Manning has earned off the field because he's earned that. He's earned that through trial by fire. So you can't deny what he brings to the table.
Okay, remember, a lot of people made the case that he was the best college football player ever. He did win a Heisman. He did win 2 national championships, one by himself. with the fourth quarter against Oklahoma.
First one was with Chris Leak. He was
Yeah, you can make that.
the relief pitcher, backup kind of
And
role.
You have to understand, the reason we talk about him is because he has become the biggest lightning rod in sports, love or hate.
Yeah.
He has become the most interesting, debatable, discussable player in all of sports.
Which is why we spend
See,
so much
but
time
see,
discussing him.
That's not the point that I was making was when I talk to defensive players. That's the conversation. That's it.
Okay, I get it.
Because they're out there balling. They're balling. They're putting up numbers.
Okay,
But we talk about him all day.
For the record, the popularity contest that got him the job, Kyle Orton in his last 18 starts in Denver was 4-14. And Tim Tebow went to camp as the quote-unquote #1 quarterback on the depth chart and got demoted to reportedly 4th string in training camp. Got the rug yanked right out from under him. So I thought that was unfair. And then it took 5 games. Orton goes 1-4. What would you do if you're a Bronco fan? You'd be saying, let's give Brady Quinn a chance. Let's give Tebow even a chance.
But Skip, give me, and you're in contact with a lot of people through Twitter, and just give me a sense when you hear the racial aspect of it.
Yeah,
I want you to give me.
Okay, but just to finish on Hugh, just remember, you say he hasn't earned it. He went on the most astonishing run a young quarterback, I think, has ever gone on in this league. You can say the defense helped and the kicker helped and the blah, blah. They all helped. They all went on this run when he took over at quarterback. 7 out of 8. With that team that nobody gave a shot, this was the 4th best team in the AFC West, and they did win the division by hook or crook, however you want to do it. Back in, go forward, whatever.
They're in.
Yeah, they're in.
Yeah.
Okay. Now to the race angle. I swung and missed on this one, and you and I talk race a lot here, and I feel like I have a good wavelength with you about it. And I misjudged this one completely because I thought with the success of the black quarterback in the National Football League over the last 25 years, where black quarterbacks became the way to go, man. I mean, they were getting picked #1. We've had 3 #1 overall picks, black quarterbacks. Vince Young was high, Akili Smith, we can just keep going, right?
Well, a big part of the problem was Akili washed out and Jamarcus washed out.
Okay. I thought maybe that a large part of the black community would jump on the Tebow bandwagon because they would have some empathy for a quarterback who went through all the things that a lot of young black quarterbacks went through 25, 30, 40 years ago, which was he's not smart enough to play in the NFL. His mechanics are pathetic. He can only run the football. This is all the things that I heard going back in my career about young black
Doug
quarterbacks
Williams.
back into the 70s,
Exactly.
right? Back into the 70s.
Right.
And I knew Doug Williams very well when he was at Grambling, and he was getting, he doesn't have IQ enough to play, okay, blah, blah. You know, I heard all this, and they shattered the mold on that. They shattered the myth of all that, and I thought, okay, and I did hear from our friend Scoop Jackson saying, hey, I love Tebow, so don't put me in that group. And my crew here in Chicago, we love him because he's gangsta, man. When it's time to play, he balls.
Right.
Okay? So I thought maybe that's where it would go, but I completely respect what you're saying. I don't agree with it, but I get it. And I have empathy for what you're saying. I've gone through that with so many young black quarterbacks. I was close to Warren Moon. He went through it. It was just horrific.
He had to go to Canada.
To get a start.
And so you can understand why. Yeah, you can understand why a good Hall of Fame player like Warren Moon had to go outside the country.
Stunned. I knew Warren Moon when he was at the University of Washington, and I was dumbfounded because I saw him play a lot, and I'd say, this guy can't play in that league? Are you kidding me?
Well, he proved he could. Can we do something before we go on? And you brought up Kordell Stewart. And I hope you don't mind. I'd love to play musical chairs here for just a second. Kordell, I know you're off, if you could, thanks you, because we appreciated your viewpoint too. But Kordell, you were brought up by Rob as one of the guys who, when you came into the league, despite the fact you proved that you could play in college, nothing was given to you. You had to earn it. In fact, you had to go to another position before you could even go to quarterback.
Right.
Yeah.
We want your thoughts on this because I think they're very valid.
Well, you have to keep it in perspective, and I think the thing is when you listen to what T. Sizzle said, and I'm 110% with him, is that when you see a guy like Tim Tebow playing the game of football the way he does, he doesn't belong in the National Football League compared to how it's been for people like myself that had to actually play the slash role to get the respect in the game, whether it's taking short yardage and goal line plays. That's why I mentioned that he needed to, get a package so he can become better as a quarterback.
Which is what you did.
Which is what I did because.
Is it personal for you?
There's just a little bit, just a little
but
bit.
it shouldn't be, Kordell. How could you not look seriously?
Hold on. I got it, Rob. Hold on. Just a little bit because, you know, I also have to respect my craft as being an analyst too as well. So I try to keep a happy medium here because it's such a touchy topic. And you talked about Warren Moon, someone who I talked to coming out and asking how should I go about this because they wanted me to play another position coming into the league.
What did he tell you?
Whether it's the Chicago Bears or the Indianapolis Colts, they wanted me to play another position. He was like, man, be who you are. Do what you do. And Lee Steinberg stuck by Warren Moon when he came from Canada, a guy who was an outstanding person and a great quarterback. Regardless if it was 40 years, regardless if it was 40 years ago.
Lee and Warren went to high school together at Hamilton High School in L.A., just for the record.
Right.
But that has nothing to do with anything. It has to do with
they had a long-standing relationship that he honored.
But Lee took
he wasn't going to walk away from a
based
friend.
on how everybody looked at black quarterbacks, Lee took a chance on this guy and having him as a client and pushing him. And, of course, Warren Moon had to put in the work in order to get the respect throughout the league, not like the Jake Duloms who come off a bench or Carson Palmer who basically didn't want to go back to Cincinnati because he didn't feel like it, and all of a sudden Hugh Jackson picks him up and he becomes the guy that gets a big deal. Jeff Garcia comes off the bench. So what happened to Aaron Brooks? Where's Aaron Brooks? Why hadn't he gotten the opportunity? I was in Pittsburgh. I had 46 wins, 29 losses. 72 and 72 touchdowns, interceptions. MVP the year before in 2001. MVP, Pro Bowl, AFC Championship game. I'm on the bench the fourth game of the season because I didn't play well in the first 3 games. All I say is when it comes to the black quarterback, the chances of them having, the chance they have to fail as much as Tim Tebow has and the way he's done it, the margin of error is so small, I think a grain of hair is not enough. It's that small.
You brought up an interesting point in the meeting this morning. It was just you and I talking about when black quarterbacks can't make it in the league as starters, they wash out. Nobody has black quarterback. We came up with a couple, Seneca Wallace, Charlie Batch. There's a few out there, but by and large,
no, I know. I'm just saying.
By and large, though,
but if you're not historically, you're not a
there's
back.
not a place for them as a 2 or a 3.
It's almost like if you're not a 1. If you're not a 1 in the National Football League as a black quarterback, you will wither away. They won't call you back, and you won't get that chance to be the backup. It's just plain and simple. You can add it up, skip the way you want to, and I think that's where the frustration comes from a lot of players in the game that's been taught and talked about when it comes to black quarterbacks. They can't do this. They can't do that. All they need to put someone else in. And it's always the white quarterback that comes off the bench that's replacing the black quarterback. And so now I'm sitting here, and I know when I look at my tweets, I'm racist.
No,
don't look at you.
Can I give you a piece of advice?
I'm just keeping perspective.
No,
I'm not.
Whatever you do, don't use Twitter as a base for common sense.
But I keep a perspective on how people think.
Okay,
and so when you think about how people are thinking, because no one talks about it, the only way they talk about it is through words on tweets.
But Kordell, just because you talk about things in a racial doesn't make you racist. You always say, Skip, racial is not racist.
What we're doing here.
Yes.
Okay, are you bitter that you didn't get a 3rd or 4th chance in the league?
Skip, I had an outstanding run. And I tell you what, the things I did in Pittsburgh, spite of sometimes, based on how I feel, I had an outstanding run.
You did.
To be able to play quarterback, to play wide receiver, and then play quarterback.
But are you bitter that you didn't get an extended?
No, I mean, when I look back
you went to Chicago.
Yeah, I was bitter then.
Okay.
I was bitter then on how they handled it because they put Tommy Maddox in, and then the next year it went 6 and 10.
How old were you when you were forced out?
I think it was 31.
Okay.
At that 32.
So still, you still had a lot of good.
I had a lot of
quarterback is young.
Now let's look at the big picture. You were a 2nd-round pick, which is not bad. So you were close to a 1st-round pick. There was still value in your pick. And in your 2nd season, you began to get your chance to play quarterback, right?
Yep. Spend time with Mike Tomczak.
And then you wound up starting 94 games in the NFL, which is it's a good run, man. I mean, you got a long shot. And then Chicago made you the starting quarterback when Pittsburgh said, we've had enough of this. We can't go any farther with Kordell. And you had your shot, and it didn't work out very well. And the
When I
rest
moved on, it didn't.
At that point, the rest of the league said,